Roundup.
It is the Roundup segment where we give you news from all across the world of sports. I'm here with Nick Canelas, Tony Bolduc. All right, we had March Madness started a few weeks ago. We've had 2 wild weeks of basketball, but the Final Four is set. We've got Kentucky, Louisville, Kansas, and Ohio State. Nick, who is the biggest surprise in the Final Four in your opinion?
Well, I guess it's pretty easy to say that it's Louisville, and I couldn't agree more that it's Louisville. I mean, not just because they're a 4 seed, but the way they've done it almost gives you those shades of UConn last year, get hot at the right time, win the Big East tournament, and just find a way to get in. And I mean, you think about UConn last year, they were leaning on Kemba Walker the whole way. Well, Louisville happens to have a point guard themselves named Peyton Siva, and he has been great. I mean, he's averaged 9.7 assists throughout the tournament. Doesn't sound too impressive. However, he's been their floor general. He's been making the plays. He's been setting up some of their bigger scorers like Shane Behannon, and it's been one of those things for them. They've gotten hot at the right time, and I think that's really what it comes down to when you look at that. And you can look at all the other teams and say that they should be there, even though you could argue that injuries plagued North Carolina when it came to Kansas.
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt you guys again. We have another update from the UMass Stanford NIT semifinal game. Stanford is currently up 29-22 with about 6 minutes left in the first half. So by the end of the show, we should be at halftime, and we'll update you then. But sticking with NCAA, going to the real tournament, or I'll say, pardon my words. Tony, who do you think is going to move on to the national championship and maybe even win it?
I think the winner is going to be the Kentucky Wildcats. You have to fear the brow with Anthony Davis. 14 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks. I mean, he's dominating down low. They are too tough down low because they have Terrence Jones, who's averaging over 7 rebounds a game. Michael the Kid Gilchrist, who's averaging over 7 rebounds a game. So their rebounding is too good to be messing with it down low. Also, the factor that I think is going to determine if they win or not is the play of the freshman point guard, Marquise Teague. He's against certain teams, he's had a few turnovers, and they can't have that because they're really going to need to play good against either Kansas or Ohio State, and especially against Ohio State because they have such good point guard defenders. But I have a feeling it's going to be Kansas versus Kentucky in the final, and I think Kansas will win. I mean, I think Kentucky will win by quite a bit. I think over 10 because they've pretty much killed their opponents by more than 12 in every game. So they've been running through the tournament. Another thing that I am worried about, though, is they haven't played any close games in the tournament, which is good experience to have. But I think Kentucky will take it, definitely.
All right, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. I mean, you guys, you have anything else to say on that, Nick?
No, I couldn't agree more. I think Kentucky's far and away the best team in the tournament. There's no way around it.
Too dominant.
Again, like you said, fear the brow.
Well, either way, it's some good matchups. Should be some good basketball here down the stretch. But we had a 2-week break here. Spring break was last week. It always seems like when we have a break, I've been here for 4 years now. We always have the most news during a break, or a week off. Last week, this may seem like old news, but last week, Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning signed a 5-year, $96 million deal with the Denver Broncos, so he will be playing in Denver. Nick, what do you think about the deal, and was it the right move for the Broncos?
You could argue it either way, to be honest with you, but this is an incredible move for the Broncos. They play in the weakest division in potentially the entire league. This was a team that got to the divisional round of the playoffs with Tim Tebow as their quarterback. If that doesn't tell you enough, this team is going to be in contention for the Super Bowl, pretty much, for the next 3 years at least, because I think Peyton Manning probably has about 3 Hall of Fame type years left in him, then the other 2 are kind of iffy. But Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning. There's no way around it. This guy's incredible. This team's got a great defense for him to have on the other side of the ball. I mean, I guess we'll really find out whether or not his receivers are for real, because, I mean, this whole Tim Tebow thing, you don't really know much about this team, because all you knew about the team was Tim Tebow. Well, you're going to learn a lot, and I think Peyton Manning's going to be huge. I do kind of think 5 years was a little much, but I think if you're going to make a Super Bowl run for at least the next 3 and be almost guaranteed a division title for at least 4 out of those 5 years, because there's really no competition in that division. I mean, they were 8-8 last year and won the division. I think that tells you enough too. Then I think it's the move you had to make.
It's scary. I mean, they had a top-ranked defense, and like you said, with Tim Tebow at quarterback, I think he threw for less than 50% completion percentage on the year.
It's awful.
That's scary. I agree. Great move, but you know, we all know that it was more to give them the guaranteed money with the years on the contract. I'm sure, but I guess we'll see if that's a good move. But that move, you know, forces the trade of Tim Tebow. He ends up, all week people were wondering, is he going to move? And a team that started out as a long shot, he ends up on the New York Jets, who just signed Mark Sanchez to a contract extension and guaranteed his salary with double-digit millions for the next 2 years. So he's obviously going to be their starting quarterback. Tony, what do you think about this move?
I think it's a very strange move, but I know why they did it. They realized in the past they haven't had any pressure on Mark Sanchez to practice harder, prepare for games harder. They picked up Tim Tebow. It's going to threaten him for a spot, definitely, because not only will Tim Tebow work harder and play harder than Mark Sanchez will, but the media will influence that greatly because Tim Tebow is loved by the media. Everything he does and says is speculated. Every time Mark Sanchez throws an interception or an incomplete pass, there's going to be people chanting Tim Tebow. If he loses a couple games, it's going to be chanting for Tim Tebow. I mean, this is going to put a lot of pressure on Mark Sanchez. And Mark Sanchez isn't the best in pressure situations as it is, because I think his playoff wins were flukes because of the defense, not much production from him. So I think that Tim Tebow is going to end up playing more games than Mark Sanchez will because of they're going to have a bad start, and then they're going to have to resolve to go to Tim Tebow. And also, while Sanchez is playing, they plan on running a wildcat with Tim Tebow with over 20 plays, which can easily throw off Sanchez's rhythm.
All right. Well, you know, we have one last question, but we're running out of time, so I don't think we're going to have to ditch it. But we have just enough time. I'm going to ask each of you one little quick thing. I just want a real quick answer. It could even be just, you know, who you think it is. You think, Tony, that Tim Tebow could end up being the starting quarterback. Let's say Tim Tebow becomes the starting quarterback of the Jets. Broncos, Jets meet in the playoffs. Who do you pick?
Is that even a question?
I don't know.
Of course it's the Broncos.
Broncos? What
I
do you
don't know.
think?
I think the Broncos too, but I definitely think that Tebow can make things happen. He makes crazy things happen.
I don't know.
He really does.
mean,
he makes magic. He really does.
Yeah, let's face it, the Jets have an aging defense, and the Broncos' defense is unbelievable. And I mean, let's face it.
They know Tebow.
Exactly. They practiced against him so many times. I mean, Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning. Again, I understand he kind of has that LeBron James effect in the playoffs, but at least he's won championship before. So I think that team is far and away better than the Jets.
Tim Tebow, he went and he beat Pittsburgh, probably one of the best, if not the best defense in the playoffs last year.
That's a topic for a whole different day. If we had 10 minutes to spare, I'd get into that one.
Nick Canelas, Tony, Bolduc, thank you guys very much. We'll check back in. And when we come back, we'll give you the update on the UMass men's basketball game and the season thus far. Stay tuned.